We have Mr. David Guttman. We talk all things growing, scaling, and exiting a business. Let's dive into this episode of The Happy Hustle. Want blissful balance in your personal and professional life? Great. What's up, guys? My name is Kerry Jack, and I want to help you happy hustle, a life you love, one full of passion, purpose, and positive impact. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, a professional model / actor, a digital marketing specialist, a podcast host, author, a biohacker, an eco-warrior, a martial artist, a hippie cowboy, and a humanitarian. My goal is to educate, inspire, and entertain you to live a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. It is time to happy hustle your dream reality. All right, Mr. David Guttman, welcome to the Happy Hustle Podcast, my man. I am super stoked to rock the mic with you.
Yeah, me too, Kara. I really appreciate you having me on. We had a great conversation when we got to get to know each other a little bit. I was excited for it.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a fun one. I mean, you are a serial entrepreneur, executive leader, business strategist with over 35 years of experience building, scaling, and exiting multiple 8 and 9-figure companies. You're a 3-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur. You have an undergraduate degree in computer science from Brown University and an MBA from Wharton School. And you're a husband, you're a father, you're a happy hustler, and I'm excited to dive into all things building, growing, scaling businesses while not burning out in the process. And obviously, you and I are very aligned on how to put the happy in your hustle and make the most out of the journey, not just wait until the end to reach this philosophical mountaintop and then realize, oh man, I sacrificed everything to get here, and now I got to go back and kind of do it differently to climb the mountain, bring everyone with me. I mean, that's what I see a lot of times with people who, climb the mountain and they sacrifice their soul in the process. And I know you've done it differently, and I'm excited to hear how you've done it and also some of the new and exciting things you're doing right now. Before we get into all that good stuff, David, what is something interesting about yourself that not too many people know?
Well, I'll go back in the Wayback Machine. I'm 59 years old, so I'm dating myself a little bit here. But way before
I
there
like
was
it. You
American
look
Idol,
great.
I appreciate that. Before there was the American Idol, and this will sound a little gay, I used to sing. I used to sing when I was younger, and I took voice lessons, and I did plays and all that kind of stuff. And there was a thing called the Singing Boys of Long Island. That's where I grew up, Long Island, New York. And I didn't even know that's what my mom had signed me up for. She just said I had some audition for something. So I showed up. I didn't even know what it was. And, they have like 1,000 people, and then they pick like 100, and you basically tour Europe. You sing in all the cathedrals in Europe. You meet the Pope, the whole 9 yards. I didn't know any of this. I just showed up, auditioned, and I got picked. So my mom was like, "Oh, great!" She's explaining to me that I'm going to be, not going to school the next year, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I've got soccer season, wrestling practice, baseball season. Like that's not happening." So that was the end of my singing career. But I was picked for the Singing Boys of Long Island back when I think I was 10.
Let's go. Singing Boys of Long Island. Shout out to you guys. I feel like we need to hear a little vibrato from you over there, David.
Well,
You got to
so
do.
so well, what I'll tell you about that. So I think you know a little bit of my background about being misdiagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 24 and given
Yeah.
6 months to live. What I
Yeah.
don't think I mentioned to you is 8 years later, when it turned out to be a benign cyst, when it reoccurred and they went to remove it, they paralyzed my vocal cords, and so for 4.5 months I couldn't speak at all. Literally couldn't speak. So, and they weren't sure if I would ever speak again. Now I did get my voice back. Thankfully, part of the reason I'm such a grateful person is I'm
Yeah.
even grateful for things like I can speak, because
Right.
it wasn't clear if I was going to ever do that. I was going to have to get that thing like my name is name. I was like thinking
Yeah.
I might have that for the rest of my life.
Dang.
So my voice came back, but it's not the same. I
Mm.
literally cannot sing to save my life. The level of drunkenness I need to be to go to karaoke would be next level, because I am now horrendous.
Okay. Well, we won't put you on the spot there, man. And yeah,
Please,
I mean, you have.
for your own safety.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you do have such a interesting backstory. I mean, getting misdiagnosed with terminal cancer and thinking, you're going to die, and then basically getting a whole new lease on life after the misdiagnosis. You know, it's crazy to think about that. But where I really want to start the conversation is when you tore up your $500,000 investment, your MBA diploma live on the air with Dan Fleishman on Money Mondays, which I saw that podcast and I was like, that's a pretty gangster move. You spent all this time and energy going to Wharton School, which is like the top of the top, to get an MBA, and you tore it up and you started this whole new movement, the anti-MBA. Talk to us a little bit about why you ripped up your MBA.
So anyone who knows me, for any period of time knows that what I value almost above everything else is authenticity.
Mm,
And I think that, the part of this, so, I went to two Ivy League schools, right? And the thing about it is, um, all the people I went to, that go to Ivy League schools benefit from the fact that everyone else is impressed by it, right?
mm,
So even though they all know it's bullshit, just like I know it's bullshit, okay, the education, even back then, okay, and it made more sense back then because there was no internet back then. You
right,
know what I'm
right.
saying? So the ability to accumulate knowledge was a lot harder back then. So it made a little bit of sense back then. Now I'd argue it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But everyone knows it's bullshit. Okay, we're teaching people now in a classroom in the same way we did 200 years ago. It's barely changed.
Mm,
Everything, any curriculum by definition is going to be outdated by the time it's delivered. And so that way, again, that was true back then, even more so now. And so for me, it was just an authenticity thing, which is I practically begged my daughter not to go to college. She was thinking about going back and get a master's degree. Again, I re-begged her. The second time I was great. I was successful, thankfully. And I actually take pride in the people I have talked out of going to law school, going to college, going to business school, because it is a terrible modality. And,
mm,
and really, the only argument you can make is what I would call the greater fool theory. People that are going to be impressed by
mm,
the thing because they haven't done it themselves, these are not people you want to be doing business with anyway. So
mm.
for me, I did it because, the person I had on that podcast with me, Anna, she is one of the people who I have been talking out of, and she's the daughter of a close friend of mine,
Mm,
talking out of going to college. She's doing it part time now. Trust me, before the first semester's over, she's going to bail because it's ridiculous. She's not learning anything, and she knows she's not learning anything. It's just a waste of time and money. And the
mm,
reality is, people don't blink about dropping, you know, 40, 50, 60, 80, $100,000 a year on a mediocre education, but they're not going to spend 2 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand to get some coaching, mentorship, take a seminar. Like I spent $2,500 doing that AI seminar I was talking to you about. That
yeah,
was money well spent. 2 days.
yeah.
Okay. And I accelerated my AI knowledge a year in 2 days, worth every penny. Like
Mm,
people just they're not thinking about it logically. It's the herd mentality. It's societal programming. And what I was trying to do on that was to make a point, which is, and it's
mm.
funny because everyone is, oh, well, you tore up a copy, right? I'm like, no, that's why I took it in the frame,
Yeah, yeah.
shattered it, ripped it up. That was the original copy, and I'm not getting a replacement. I do have the pieces because I figure it's a better story to put it in like Lucite and have that on my desk than having it on my
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was a viral moment for sure. And again, it's something that I think a lot of people fall victim to is this, you know, path to quote unquote success. Go to a good college, get a job, you know, spend all your first 10 years of your job paying back the loan that got you the job. That it's such a faulty system. Rather, now there's so many better ways to spend that time, money, investment, resources, whatever you want, energy. And I say this about my 4 years in college. I learned more about business in the first 6 months of my first business than I did in 4 years of getting a business degree. They don't really teach you shit about the actual running of the business, or like how to balance your P&Ls, or how to market, or even sell or fulfill upon what you market and sold. It's very much, I'm in your camp. I really am. And I wish there was more people who were shining light on this. I don't know if you want to call it a scam or what would you call
Yeah,
it?
dude, I think it is a scam.
Yeah,
I think it's like if you look at the two things where the cost, I mean, inflation's already ridiculous, but if you want
right.
to look at the two areas where it's even, I mean, it's stupid ridiculous is
Yeah,
healthcare and education.
Right.
where the inflation rate in just those two sectors they defy all logic, right?
Right.
And it's not because the quality of education is getting better. If anything, it's getting worse. All that extra expense is going into administration. It's not going into the actual education. Um, and it's funny. Peter Thiel. I don't know if you know Peter
Yeah.
Thiel.
Yep. I
He,
don't
he
know
wrote one of
him,
my
but I
all.
know of him.
No, no, yeah, above him, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he wrote one of my all-time favorite business books, which is Zero to One. Phenomenal book if you
Right.
haven't
Yep.
read it, or
Read it.
anyone listening. Phenomenal book. Um, but he actually posted something on X the other day that I disagreed with. He said that capitalism is failing the youth today, and that's not what I think is true. What I think is true is education is failing the youth
Mm.
because it's such a bad ROI. It's like start first of all taking an 18-year-old who can barely find their ass with two hands and a flashlight, okay, and say, spend $250,000 knowing what
Yeah.
you're going to do for the rest of your life. I mean, what's a dumber thing to do than that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Take the $250,000 and put it in Bitcoin and shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like that's by the way, I don't know if I can curse on your podcast.
You're good with
So
it. Good on my end. I don't care. Yeah.
now, so it really is that. I think that I know a lot of younger guys. I was just at this mastermind in Croatia. I was the oldest person by 35 years.
Mm.
Okay, guys were from between the ages of 19 and 25, and all these guys are making between 15 to 50K a month, even more.
Mm.
And the reality is there are some missing pieces in, and which is part of why it was useful for me to be there. I'm helping them
Mm.
learn some general things about business and how to plan and structure business and how to scale businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But they've learned by doing, and almost none of them have any college education or very little. I don't think any of them graduated. Good for them. But they're doing better than people I know with an MBA from a top business school and 20 years of experience. So
Mm.
who's the fool, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the reality is the pieces they're missing are much easier to teach than the person who's been 20 years in corporate America with the MBA, and the pieces that they need to understand, which is you learn by doing and failing, not by taking a class from some ivory tower professor who's never had to make payroll.
Yeah. That's the damn truth, man. You're preaching, and I love it because I see it too with like certifications and, people who, they'll go to like a life coaching certification or my friend, for example, she has like every Tony Robbins certification under the sun. Like, and I'm like, good for you. Tony's the shit. I love Tony. Don't get me wrong. But, the best actual certification is a changed life. Like if you can get someone a real result in the thing that you promised to do for them with your product or service, like nowadays, I think there's just way too much emphasis on, like you said, the degrees or the certifications. Now, if you're going to go do surgery, like, and be, a heart surgeon, go to school. Like, we're not talking those people, right? We're talking entrepreneurs. Because you need to have some type of training. Well, I will say you need to have critical thinking when you go to med school, though, because they don't teach you diet and nutrition and the importance of that. They're just putting band-aids on the root or on the symptoms, not solving the root cause. Oftentimes, according to my doctor friends, at least, they're not learning a lot of the things that cause the problems. I digress. The point is, if you are out there right now and you're thinking you need all these fancy certifications or to go get an MBA, you don't. There's plenty of people who have walked the path. I know you mentioned, Zuckerberg and Michael Dell and a bunch of people like Elon Musk who dropped out of these universities and are creating, the biggest companies in the world. So what would you say to somebody right now, just to tie a bow on this, just to really hammer it home? What is a better place to put that time, energy, capital, resources for someone who is considering it?
So one of the things I think that's important, people talk about, and you've probably heard this too. Seen it in a bunch of places. People say, "Oh, passion is a bad driver of decision making, right? Like, oh, do something you're passionate about." I think you can become passionate about anything you're good at, anything you're successful at, for the most part. But I do think that you have interests, right? So you might have an interest in sports and health and fitness, in technology, in AI, whatever you might. And so what I would say is find something that you have some general interest in,
Mm.
and then find someone who is killing it doing that thing
Yeah.
you're interested in.
Yeah.
Offer to work for that person for nothing.
Mm.
Okay. And now do your homework. Make sure that this is a person you really feel like you can learn from, right?
Right.
Offer to work for that. Say, I will do whatever you want. I just want to learn from you. Okay. My experience is situations like that, they're probably not going to let you work for free. And even if they do, probably not for very long, especially if you're adding any value whatsoever.
Right.
But think about it. Think about the fact that you're not earning an income as compared to spending money at school where you're also not earning an income, right? You're still better off. And
Yeah.
you're actually getting an education from someone who is going to become, if you've done it right, emotionally invested in your development and success,
Right.
right? Who
Right.
doesn't want to have a mentee that's going to eventually outshine you, and you say, hey, that's my rock star mentee, and look how amazing he or she is doing, right? So that would be my advice. If I were, in my, late teens, early 20s, I'd find something I was really passionate, or not passionate, excited about. I'd really find some real interest in it. Because hey, if I'm going to spend my time doing it, we can talk about this too, right? Like I think that when you have an interest in the thing that you're doing that also pays your bills, it doesn't really feel like work. And people
Right.
talk about how to have balance. I think the best way to have balance is to really like and enjoy the people you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
and to really like what you're doing,
Mm.
right? And that doesn't mean you're going to like everything you do every day. I don't like everything I do every day. There's,
Right.
bullshit stuff I have to deal with.
Same.
That's always going to be true. But at the end of the day, if you like the people you're doing stuff with, and you like what you're doing, then you're never really working. And then the balance isn't so difficult, because then it's just about making sure you have healthy relationships, making sure you make time for your health and wellness and stuff like that, mental health and stuff like that, and the rest of it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well said. You know, I did this unknowingly. Like I found someone that was building, growing, and scaling a personal brand business in my biohacking company prior to the Happy Hustle. And, shout out to Anthony. I learned a ton from him. And we grew this business, nice mid seven figure business, right? It was before ice baths were cool. We were doing them. We had Wim Hof on the podcast. No one knew who the heck he was, right? And Russell Brunson was like our figurehead client at the time, and he kind of kingmakered us in the ClickFunnels community. So we blew up after that, and really, we were working a lot with pro athletes and high level entrepreneurs, and we were really growing this free plus shipping book funnel that had a bunch of spin-off offers on the back end, high level, high ticket coaching. Nonetheless, at the time I didn't really realize how valuable that education was. You're learning on someone else's dime. You're getting real world experience. There's stakes, like if you mess up, people's money, but it's ultimately not on you. It's on your mentor, who has to take accountability for the overarching. So the risk reward ratio is in your favor as a mentee. So I highly recommend finding someone who you would like to learn from, who you would trade places with, both personally and professionally, and serve them, and make it something that you're interested in. And then the second thing you said that I want to just echo the point, you know, serving people who you actually want to be around. Like you mentioned, that's how you find balance, making sure the people you work with don't suck, right? I did that wrong initially with the Happy Hustle, man. I'll tell you, I was serving people in like the corporate world, help become happy hustlers and like start a business. I was like, I don't fucking know anything about the corporate world because I've never been in the corporate world. And so I don't understand the Karen politics in accounting and how, you got to watch what you say with HR. And I'm like, I didn't play the game. So I don't know how the rules. Right. So then I pivoted to serving high performing, badass male entrepreneurs, my people, and we take them camping. We, take them skiing. We do fun things that I love to do. And none of my days really feel like work. Yes, like to your point, you say you do things that you don't really want to be doing sometimes. That's part of it, but it's more about who I believe not why. I know Simon Sinek says start with why. My buddy Rory Vaden says start with who, because who is actually more important in my opinion, because that's who you are going to have to be interfacing with on the regular. What would be your thoughts on the who versus the why?
Well, the who's a really good is a really good point because I think that the single biggest, thing that's going to make a business succeed or fail are the people that are in the business, right?
Mm,
And there's a big connection between the who and how you lead that I think people
mm,
miss, because like my leadership style, I sent you that article that I wrote on servant
yeah.
leadership, and the reality is that only works if you have the right people,
Mm,
right? So if you pick the right people and you use that servant leadership style, like the sky is the limit.
mm,
But it does require you to pick the right who, because if
mm.
you got the right who, you're going to have a disaster.
Yeah.
So and so really understanding, and I made this mistake, and I will probably make it again, unfortunately, hiring purely on talent or largely on talent.
Mm,
um, I think that there's sometimes like, look, if I'm trying to build some AI thing that requires deep knowledge and expertise, machine learning, things like that. Sometimes you're really between a rock and a hard place and having to pick a who that might not be ideal because there just aren't enough of them. And I don't know enough to be able to teach them the thing that I don't even know, right? So, but that's the rare exception. 90+% of any role you're going to fill, um, if you hire instead on attitude, the fact that they've got grit, they've got that these are people that you enjoy, and you can teach them the rest. So, I definitely have gotten better at that. I still occasionally make that mistake out of necessity, but it does sometimes still bite me because you're limited. But I say focus on the who first. And I know they say, I think it was Viktor Frankl, Man Search or Meaning. He said, if you if you have the right why, you can deal with almost any how.
mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Both imperative pieces to the puzzle, per se. Let's talk about growing and scaling a business. I mean, this is the dream for many happy hustlers out there listening, where they grow and scale a business to the point where someone else wants to buy it and pay them a lot of money for it, right? And you've been able to do this successfully and exit for a nice chunk of change. I know there's a lot of myths around exits, and there's misconceptions too on you know what's needed in order to get the number that you desire. But I'm curious, just in your professional experience, what do you see as like the greatest mistake when founders are looking to actually have an exit? What do you see they do wrong time and time again, most commonly?
yeah, so this is actually an easy one, and the thing is too is not only is it an easy one to identify, it's an easy one to fix, and yet so
Mm,
few people do. The two areas where I think people make the biggest mistakes, and they are more alike than people realize, is how you raise capital. Assuming you do raise capital, not everybody does. Some people bootstrap, but if you do raise capital, how they raise capital, at what valuation, how they plan for it, and all of that, they get that wrong
mm,
so often.
mm,
And then the other thing is because and they're connected. If you do raise capital, how you exit, how you prepare for exit, how you run the business to optimize. At the end of the day, a business is worth what someone will pay for it, right? And you can have, oh, it's usually this kind of EBITDA multiple or this kind of revenue multiple for this sector and blah blah blah. It's worth what someone will pay for you, pay
yeah.
for it. And but there are a lot of things you can do to control that. But to directly answer your question, the single biggest mistake by galaxies that entrepreneurs make that harm their ability to raise capital at the right valuation and even more so help them exit at the right valuation is the fact that they don't have a budgeting and forecasting sort of model at the core of their business. And I
Mm,
am stunned by the percentage of businesses even doing 20, 25, 30 million, 50 million in revenue that do not have that don't go into their new fiscal year. Let's call it, assuming their calendar year, they're not going to go into 2026 with a budget for 2026. And I remember when I started, I was CEO of this, I became CEO of this prop trading firm down in Miami. They were already doing 12 or 13 million, I think, when I joined. And I was like, hey, like, can I see the budget? They're like, oh, we don't have one of those. And I was like, you're running an 8-figure business without a budget. What's fucking wrong with you? Like, how do you even know
Yeah.
that you're even like moving in the right direction? And so the advice I give, even solopreneurs,
Mm.
okay, but definitely early stage businesses. In fact, there's a guy I'm mentoring now. It was funny. He's such a sweet guy. He's got this amazing app called Menu Fit. He's already doing 6 figures in revenue. He launched it 3 months ago. I
Nice.
think he's tracking to be valued between 75 and 100 million by the end of next year.
Wow.
Anyway, so really great kid. I think he's 25 years old, something like that. Cole Costco, great guy. And so anyway, he's asking me for advice, and I was like, helping him. I do this, do that, whatever. And he's like, hey, like, can I make you an advisor and give you some equity in my company? And I was like, Cole, I'll do it for nothing. He's like, no, I want you to have ownership in my company so you can help me not make any fucking mistakes, right? And I said, I'm not going to say no. Okay. So, but the beauty of it is, I said, but it's so easy to fix. I said, Cole, I said, you're spending time on these numbers. I said, you need a budget. I said, the timing's perfect. It's November, right? I said, let's spend the next month. I have a guy who can help you put a budget together. And the beautiful thing is, if you put the budget together properly, so that it's not just a budget, it's a budget and forecasting model.
Mm.
Okay, so that when January is done, you put in the actuals for January. It should reforecast the balance of the year. Okay, when February is done, you put in February numbers. It should reforecast the balance of the year. If you do it right, you have a crystal ball in your business. You're going to sleep better. You're going to know what's working. And the other thing I tell, again, all these early stage companies, even if they're a solopreneur, create a board of directors. Call them a
Mm.
board of advisors if you want. My advice is giving them some small amount of equity, have vesting, so that
Yeah.
they don't get the equity unless they stick around and really are helpful, right?
Right.
But you should be having quarterly board meetings. The one in December they should review and approve the budget, or help you review and approve the budget, so that everyone knows what, because you want everyone in your company to be rowing in the same direction. The best way to do that is to make sure everyone knows what the goals are,
Right.
right? And then have quarterly board meetings uh, where you basically do a variance analysis, and you say, what did we say we were going to do? What did we do? What was better than we thought? What was worse than we thought? What adjustments should we make? Okay. And then you make those adjustments, you reforecast, and now you've got another crystal ball. If you
Mm.
do that, I guarantee you're going to increase your value minimum 25%.
Mm.
Okay. But double's not ridiculous. And by having that discipline, okay, how much that's going to help you on exit. And not only that, when you're getting ready, someone's getting ready to do due diligence on your business. The people that are selling businesses for the first time don't understand due diligence's primary goal for the buyer is to reduce the purchase price. That
Mm.
is the goal. And if you
Yeah.
don't know how to manage that process, that's exactly what they're going to try to do. And they get
Mm.
you half pregnant. They get you thinking about how you're going to spend the 25 million or the 50 million or whatever it's going to be. And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're thinking that way. And, oh, well, hey, we didn't realize that you had this much customer risk. It was concentrated in this few customers. And so we're going to have to, if you still want us to buy it, you're going to have to reduce the purchase price by 20%, or we're not going to do it. And now you're like,
Mm.
fuck, okay, I guess I'll do it. So, but if you're buttoned up and you understand how to manage the process, you'll maximize the value.
Yeah. Man, I hope everyone just rewinds and listens to that again, because that was some gold, David. The budget, the forecasting, really dialing in and buttoning up, as you said, your financials, and getting a board of advisors, like people that you can trust and that are there to support you. Imperative. So
Well, let me tell you
important.
exactly how I would do that. Okay, my
Yeah.
advice is, so let's just say take you're starting a business and you're going to
Yeah.
raise some, and you actually have the capital yourself to do it. So I'm just going to use directional numbers. You have a business, it's going to take you $1 million to get it profitable, and you have the $1 million. Let's just take the extreme example. You still shouldn't put in the full $1 million yourself. Put in 900K, bring in an outside investor to put in $100,000. So there's at least one person on your board that represents money. Okay. And then obviously the CEO is on the board. The person who's putting in the 100 grand in this example is on the board. And the third person should be someone that has some broad experience and has some experience exiting a business, ideally in your industry.
Mm.
Okay. Give both of them a little bit of equity. One guy's going to have equity for the fact that he put in 100K. Both give them a little bit of equity just for being an advisor. or board member, however you're going to do it. You don't lose any control. You lose no control in doing this. You now have two people, very smart, very experienced, two different perspectives than yours, okay, that are not going to be as emotionally invested in your decisions because they're not their decisions, and they're going to help you avoid mistakes, guaranteed. And all you're asking for them is to spend 3 to 4 hours a quarter, basically an hour a month, okay, for which you're giving them some upside. You pick those people right, and you're gonna 1.5 to 2x whatever you would have done otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great tactical way to break that down. And I think about, the Happy Hustle right now, we're building SaaS because not really something that I want to be doing, to be straight up with you, David. It's more, I've been poked and prodded and persuaded by our customers who are like, hey, we're getting great value from the Happy Hustle 10 alignments, but now we need to roll this out for our team because, it's just, I see the positive benefits. And I'm like, well, shit, we don't serve companies. We serve the founder, and they're like, well, you should just at least create something for the team. And I'm like, okay, let me do this. Because I had a history in SaaS prior. I was grinding like a dog. That's actually how I burnt out back in New York City, wearing the monkey suit and tie,
New York City, that's the place to burn out of all places, for sure.
Oh, man, sure it is. Yeah, so I went super unfulfilled, super unhappy. We had partnerships, though, with Microsoft and IBM and seven-figure VC funding deals. And I had this whole, 5-year trajectory exit. A lot of the Happy Hustlers out there know a little my backstory, so I'm not going to bore them with it. But the point is, I was reluctant because I think I had a little SaaS PTSD, will you? But now I'm hiring and bringing on smart people to the board that are way more qualified than me, giving them vested equity over time. And it really relieves a lot of pressure too from myself, because then I'm not solely responsible for steering the ship without consult from, helpful navigators, will you? And that is worth it. That is worth giving up equity. What do they say? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together, right? The old adage. That is so true. And with your businesses, I want to kind of bring it back to, think of your most successful exit. By the way, if you don't mind, can you share a little bit of insight on that one specifically? In that way,
yeah. So the most successful one was a telemedicine business called First Stop Health. We sold to private equity. So actually, the first 60% is exited. The other 40% will exit here sometime in the next probably 18 to 36 months. But that 40% will probably be worth 2 to 3x what the first 60% was worth.
All right, my Happy Hustlers out there. Imagine a set of headphones that don't just play music, cancel noise, and take calls, but also optimize your brain and focus in the process. Well, that is what Neurable AI is all about. And these specific neurotech-powered headphones, which track your brain waves in real time using these EEG sensors to help you improve focus, flow, and mental recovery. See, with Neurable's AI-driven insights through their app platform, you can actually get personalized feedback on when you're in deep focus, when you're drifting off track, and when you need to take a brain break. That way you can lock in longer, work smarter, and reduce cognitive fatigue. And the best part is you get the hookup for being a part of the Happy Hustle tribe. You can save $100 by going to neurable.com and using code HAPPY to save. I'll tell you what, they're made for high performers who are out there happy hustling a life that they love, both personally and professionally. And they fit with our brand mission, which is to avoid burnout and achieve that blissful balance. So I'm super stoked about this new tech that's out there and Neurable being a partner of ours. And I hope that you give them a go, especially if you're in the market for a new headphone. These are how you can ultimately increase your productivity and avoid burnout. If your brand doesn't look legit, people aren't going to treat it like it is. So whether you're building a biz from scratch or you're leveling up your current brand, 99 Designs by Vista is the ultimate creative platform for you to bring your vision to life. From logos design to app design to packaging to book covers, you name it, 99 Designs connects you with top freelance designers from around the world to create custom, memorable designs you love. We have personally at the Happy Hustle used them for book cover designs, logos, and now currently we're running design contests for our swag live shipping box. So that way, when you get a package from us, everything's branded and it looks super professional and on point. Now, you have two different ways that you can work with them. And basically, it's simple. You run a contest, let the global design community submit ideas, and then you pick the best one, or you work one-on-one with the designer who gets your vibe from start to finish. And because you're a part of the Happy Hustle Tribe, you get an exclusive $25 off your first design contest. All you gotta do is just go to 99designs.com/happy and then claim your discount and then watch your brand glow up, my friend. Do yourself a favor and just don't DIY your design. Let the pros at 99 Design by Vista help your brand thrive. Wow.
So I don't even know what the final number is going to be, but it's probably going to be in that, if I had to guess, 350 range. By the time
350 million?
Yeah. But and not only that, but like that's an interesting story because when I started there, we were 6 months from bankruptcy.
Wow.
Teladoc was 800-pound gorilla in our space, and they had just gone public, so they had a perfect balance sheet. They had 90% market share. We had like 0.0001% market share. Our balance sheet looked like a complete disaster, right? We're about to go out of business. And just by shifting the business model, we were in the Inc. 500 2 years in a row, which is almost impossible to do. I think it's like a quarter or a half of 1% of businesses can be in the Inc. 500 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And we did it while charging 10 times the price that Teladoc charged. And we got zero pushback on price. So the business model that you use and your channel partnerships, like understanding those and making sure you're thinking about those, intelligently can be a game changer in any business if you're trying to scale.
Yeah. So that was a business that you joined after it was.
Yeah, so the
failing.
8-figure exit. So the 8-figure exit I had was a company called High Beam Research. That was like a LexisNexis or Factiva for consumers. So basically, for $30 a month or $200 a year, you had unlimited access. We had 100 million articles in our database from like 4,000 sources, everything from like the Washington Post to Malaysian Nursing Quarterly and everything in between. It was like it was I'll say this, two years before we exited. This is how I really understood if you manage the due diligence process, how much difference it can make. We were valued at $3 million 2 years before we exited, and we exited for more than 10 times that amount 2 years later. And we exited in December of 2008, when the height of the financial crisis, when every company that was exiting were getting 30 to 50% haircuts on their exit valuation. But because we managed due diligence and exit process well, we kept our original asking price was met. So because the last 3 months, we set it up in such a way that the last 3 months before exit were the 3 best months in the company's history. And we were squeaky clean during due diligence. So as much as they desperately wanted to end, we had the perception of a competitive situation, which it actually wasn't, but they didn't know that. So by managing the process properly, we didn't take a hit to our purchase price at all.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, those are some pro tips there, people. So you had multiple exits, the 8-figure company, the 9-figure company that was in the telehealth, and now
same CEO. So same CEO from the 8-figure to the 9-figure. So I had done something in between, and when that wrapped up, the CEO, who I would have lunch with every now and then, said, "Hey, I'm running into some challenges. Can you take a look for me?" So so I looked, and I was like, "Well, here's how I would fix it." And he said, "Well, can you come on as president and fix it?" So I did. So and I did that for the next 5 years. And like I said, we've had the first half of that exit, or 60% of that exit, and the other 40% will happen here, hopefully sometime here in not too long. Too distant. By the way, on your SaaS business, I wanted to mention something that might get you a little bit more excited about that. So my dad started a software company in his late 20s. And what he would do is he would do fixed price contracts for large, organizations. And I think it was the Ford Foundation, that came to him and said, "You're the only contractor who delivers on time and delivers on budget. That never happens with tech projects. How do you do it?" And the truthful answer was, my dad this is obviously way before AI, my dad had written what they call a 4th generation language. So basically, it's a program that writes programs. He would design the screens, he would design the reports, he would design the workflow, and effectively click a button and it would write the code, right?
Wow.
And so he explained this to them, and they said, "Well, that's amazing. Would you sell it to us?" Right? Kind of like your customers. Hey, would you create a SaaS tool for us? And my dad's like, "Sure, for $1 million." And they said, "Okay." He's like, "Fuck, I should have asked for 5 million."
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, that company eventually IPO'd, and it was that software business, which made way more money than he could have ever made doing the actual contracting work, which
Right.
was what started the business in the first place.
Oh, that is inspiring. I mean, that's kind of what's happening here, to be honest.
Go where your
I'm not.
customers tell you to go. You
Yeah,
know.
and that's just again a little golden nugget, will you, people? Go where the customers tell you to go. Listen, right? Not uh, just work in a silo and think something is what they want. Ask your customers, talk to them, and then go serve them deeper and in a meaningful way based on their needs. I feel like I don't know. You have sold a lot. I'm sure a lot of things you're selling, you're raising capital. I love sales personally, and sales are like the lifeblood of any organization, as they say, right? I feel called to talk to you just briefly about sales because it's such a universal skill set. And I know you talk about the 100-hour rule, and being just dedicating yourself to learning something for, what do you say, 18 minutes a day, right?
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
that can transform your entire skill set. I think at a minimum, people need to invest in their sales skills, and really just sharpen that sword so that you have, as again, Brand Builders Group says, the pressure-free persuasion down pat. That has been a superpower of mine, if I can say, humbly speaking, being able to, as my wife says, she calls me coercion Carrie, but in the best sense, right? It's like I'm like coercion her. Hey, we should go this place this weekend, and I don't hear no very well. I'm like, that sounded a little bit like a maybe. Anyway, talk to me about sales. When
Sure.
you advise someone to really study sales and the skills that are necessary to persuade someone without pressure, without scamminess or sleaziness, where do you recommend them start?
It's a great question. Look, life's a sales call. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to get a date with a pretty girl, or try to convince an investor to invest capital, or trying to convince someone to join your team, or trying to sell a customer, right? And I think that the mistake people make is it's the label of sales itself, right? So there's this guy who I mentor, great kid in the sales space, and he calls it sales as service, which is better. But the
Yeah.
way I like to think about it, and the way I think about sales, I don't think of it as sales. I think of it as persuasion, and I
Mm.
differentiate between persuasion and manipulation in this way. If I'm trying to get you to do something in your interest, I'm persuading you. If I'm trying to get you to do something against your interest, I'm manipulating you.
Mm.
And so for me, the way I look at it is I either I back when I ran First Stop Health, a telemedicine company. It's the first time I was ever responsible for managing a sales team directly and the entire sales process, right? And I'd never done it before, and actually, it turns out I really enjoyed it because I already had put in a lot of reps in the, let's just call it, the persuasion space, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, that's really all sales was. And what I would tell my salespeople is, get me a fast no over a slow maybe. The slow maybes will fucking kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, like no, you when you get to channel Jocko,
Yeah.
when someone says no, you should be saying good, thank you for saying no, right?
Yeah.
Is the sooner you can realize, same thing in dating too. It's like the sooner you realize someone's not the right fit for you, you'd rather take 10 minutes than 10 weeks or 10 months or 10 years, right? So get those fast no's and focus on the people where you can deliver more value. I was another guy I mentor who's got an AI company. Him and I were talking this morning, and we're talking about who his target customer is. I said, um, imagine you were going to sell 10 customers, okay? And 10 customers are, early stage businesses, high failure rate, flash in the pan. 10 customers, they're more blue chip customers. They've been around for a long time. They're going to be around for a long time. To sell both of those companies might take the same level of effort and initially might generate the same amount of revenue, but they are not equal.
Mm,
Okay. So focus on the right customer, the customer you're going to deliver the most value to. So as I were thinking about how I would come up with a sales strategy for any company I'm consulting to, I'm mentoring, I'm like, let's talk about the customer that is the avatar, that's the perfect customer that you're going to add the
right,
most value to. Where can we find them? What's the marketing strategies and tactics and channel partnerships to get to as many of those people as possible? How do we build
right.
credibility in that world? That's how I
Mm,
think about it.
yeah, yeah. That is key. Building the sales process around the perfect avatar. I always like to say, be a magnet for your perfect people and not a megaphone to everyone else. That's what a lot of people are. Buy my shit. Look at me. Look how good I am. Just megaphoning their offer out there. And it's like, it's hard because, I mean, this little, whatever, 10-inch piece of plastic and glass, our phones, is the most valuable piece of real estate we have. And to compete here is, for attention, is a tough feat. And so if you don't nail your marketing message and really magnetize those perfect people with copy that reflects their true needs, their pain points, and building that that bridge to, you know, supersede that gap of where they're at to where they want to be, then you'll fall on flat ears. When you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one. I'm going to hit another, uh,
Well,
cliche
I think
statement.
two of the biggest mistakes people make is
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying, which is
yeah,
they broadcast to the universe. What people
yeah.
underestimate is how much noise that creates in your business. Every lead that comes in, you've got to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 1,000 leads and you got to figure out how to get to the 10 useful ones, right? That's a very daunting process as opposed to I get 100 leads and I need to get to the 10 good ones, right?
Right,
It's
right.
a very different thing. The other mistake I see businesses make, especially early stage, and it's totally understandable, is you should be, and I learned this when I ran this call center business. Um, it's probably the biggest group I ran. It's a 400-person business. We did 13 acquisitions over like 3 or 4 years. And
Dang.
my management team there, they were the experienced ones. I was learning from them, though they technically reported to me. And what they taught me was you should be firing every single year. You should be firing your 10% worst customers every single year.
Interesting.
And it's the opposite of that Pareto principle, right? Where it's like it's that
Yeah.
10% of your customers that's creating 80% of the fucking noise.
Yeah, so
Okay,
true.
the complaints, the headaches, the customers. Fire them. And wait, by the way, the
Ovulation.
best way to fire them, raise your price until they leave.
Oh, that's good.
You know, in the call center business, that's what we would do. We would take the bottom 10% that we knew were causing us headaches, and we would just raise their price. 80% of them would leave. The 20% that stayed were almost kind of worth it because they were paying us double what they were paying us before, at
Right,
least,
right.
right? And so that's my advice: is fire your 10% and fire them by raising the price until they leave.
Wow, I've never heard that, but it's such a great principle if you actually implement it. Again, I mean, you think about those pain in the ass clients that just stress you out, text, call at unusual times,
Yep,
and just
yep. We all
just
have them.
yeah, deserve, or in their mind, deserve more of your attention, even though they pay less. Yeah. So there you go. If you take nothing else away, people, from that,
Yeah.
or from this episode, which will be near impossible, do that one thing: fire 10% of your problem customers every year. I want to talk about the future. I mean, you have your pulse on a lot of things happening when it comes to cryptocurrency, when it comes to AI, when it comes to entrepreneurship. I mean, there is a lot of change taking place. What do you forecast as, let's say, the next 5 years from, we're going into 2026, we're at Q4 right now at the time of this recording, as a really area of opportunity for entrepreneurs to focus on? If it's AI, great. Give us a little more insight as to how to focus and apply some of the principles. Or if it's cryptocurrency, give us a little nuances, tactically speaking, on where should we be putting our energy when it comes to being best prepared to seize the opportunities of the future.
So the one thing I say is anyone you listen to online who tells you they know how things are going to turn out they're lying.
Yeah.
Okay, they're just fucking lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that being said, I think there are some basic principles that can help you make better decisions. And the two areas where that I think that, if you're paying attention, that you just have to understand are going to change the world are cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence. And
Mm.
the way I think about it is, for most people, don't try to trade crypto. Okay, the two best pieces of advice, and I guess I'm supposed to say this is not financial advice, but I'll tell you what I do and what I tell my 25-year-old daughter to do is, if you don't have time to analyze it, which almost none of us do, and you probably don't have the expertise to analyze it anyway, just dollar cost average into Bitcoin. And the reason that people don't understand is, not only is Bitcoin not inflationary, okay, the part that they don't understand it is actually deflationary, because so much Bitcoin will be lost. Not just the crypto Bitcoin that's already been lost. Okay, I have 80% of my liquid net, no, probably more than that, in my liquid net worth in a hardware wallet. Okay, the reality is, if I get struck by lightning, I know I have a kill switch, and I know that my wife's going to be able to access everything. But in order to do that properly, it is not trivial to do. Most people don't do that.
Right.
And so, and you probably heard the story about the guy who had, like, I think it's like $1 billion or $700 million in some landfill in New Jersey because he had a bunch of crypto on a hard drive that, Bitcoin on his hard drive that he can't get. He offered the guy who runs the thing like 50 million if they can find it. You don't want to be that guy. My point is, there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of Bitcoin that's going to go missing.
True.
So it's deflationary automatically. There can never be more than 21 million. 99% of it's already been mined. And the rest of it's not going to get mined for 115 years. So it's going to take 115 years for that last 1% to get mined. So for all intents and purposes, all the crypto that Bitcoin that's ever going to be created has already been created. And now and don't get me wrong, it's still going to be volatile. That's why I'm saying dollar cost average in, right? Yep. Don't try to time the market. And again, this should be money you don't need access to for at least 5 years. Okay? Dollar cost average in, money you don't need to touch for 5 years. And then the other thing I would say is, put some significant percentage, because I'm more of a risk-seeking person. My percentage is 100%. 100% of my retirement accounts are in MicroStrategies. Now it's a company that's on the Nasdaq. It'll most likely get added to the S&P 500 next year.
Michael Saylor's company.
Michael Saylor's company, exactly. The guy he's the Michael Milken who created junk bonds. He's the Michael Milken of our day.
Yeah.
He's forgotten more about finance than most people will ever know. He's smarter than all of them.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, they're calling it a Ponzi scheme. It's just because he's fucking smarter than they are. They don't know what he's. And Grant Cardone's real estate strategy. That's right. That's all Michael Saylor. That's not Grant Cardone. That's all Michael Saylor. And I think it's brilliant. So put your retirement account, some percentage of your retirement accounts in MicroStrategies. It's actually a great time to buy because it's actually dipped quite a bit here lately. And dollar cost average into MicroStrategies and Bitcoin. You do those two things because what people don't understand is, when you have Bitcoin in a hardware wallet, okay, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. You can do some quick research. I've got a bunch of content on it. You effectively are acting as your own bank, okay? I can send $1 million to Turkey for 75 cents in 10 minutes. If I wanted to do that through a bank, it would take an act of Congress to do that.
I know. It's so true.
Okay. And I still probably couldn't. I mean, every time I try to make an investment for my Wells Fargo account, they call me up. Who's this going to? How long have you known the CEO? It's like, it's my fucking money. It's none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But when it's Bitcoin, all that. So, as much uncertainty as there is, you don't want to be left holding the bag or not holding the bag, as the case may be, because your government fucks with you. Look what happened with the truckers in Canada. They froze the bank accounts of the people that donated money to the truckers. Look at what happened in Argentina. Look what happened in Cyprus. You say it's never going to happen. We have almost $40 trillion in debt. I don't think anyone can predict what's going to happen. But I know if I have it in Bitcoin, I've got control over it. On the artificial intelligence front, the same kind of thing, which is, if you're not dedicating 2 or 3 hours a week, minimum, to understanding how to leverage AI, you're an idiot. Okay? I'm sorry. It's like, and I probably, I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm probably spending 15 hours a week. Okay. Because I want to be in that 1%. That's why I went to that 2-day seminar. Like, I want to, I'm probably in the top 1% of people. And actually, believe it or not, my computer science degree in 1988, my concentration in computer science was artificial intelligence, back when it was a very different thing than it is now. So it's always been an interest of mine, even more of an interest now.
Yeah.
And spend time, because the companies that are not embracing, and people that are not embracing AI, you're going to get passed over. The reality is, though, there is this weird opportunity because AI on its own. So that article I sent you, the Ted Lasso leadership
Yeah.
article that I sent you, that's 85% me, 15% AI. Okay.
Mm,
AI could not write that article. I also couldn't write that article. Not as good
mm,
as it is, right? But together, we're able to get something better than it couldn't have even come close on its own, right? But it made me 15 to 20% better than I could have been on my own, no matter how much time I spent on it.
mm.
So it's like find ways. The other thing that I'm using AI for, believe it or not, is self analysis,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Coaching and mentorship for myself. I mean, so there's something called Notebook LM. If you have Google Workspace, it's built in for free. You don't even have to pay for it. You can load up to 300 sources in any project, and then you can ask that project any question about that content. So I fed it every podcast I've been on, every podcast I've done, everything I've ever written, the courses that I've recorded. I put all that content in there, and now I can say, what does Dave Guttman think about leadership? And it'll give me a 3-page document summarizing everything Dave Guttman thinks about leadership. Whoop, there it is.
Yeah.
Um, it is unbelievably powerful, but you have to understand. And by the way, it's changing so fast that what's state of the art and best in class today, in a month will be different. And if you're not paying attention, subscribe to a couple newsletters, watch some content, curate some content, use AI to help you find the best content about AI.
Yeah. Yeah. It's some great points. Let's just kind of recap touching on crypto. I mean, dollar cost averaging in Bitcoin, I've been doing that for a while, just buying it every week, and just it's set it and forget it, people. So like there really is no excuse. It's just pure ignorance if you don't educate yourself and just set up an auto payment where it pulls every single week or every single month, and you'll be your future self will thank you. All right. That's, I mean, the economics around Bitcoin. I'm not going to speak on any other crypto meme coins or whatnot, but the economics on Bitcoin just pencil. So just do yourself a solid and invest. And again, not financial advice, but that's just my take. Do your own due diligence too, but then you'll probably come to the same conclusion David and I have come to. And then with AI, oh, do you have something that you want to
I was
throw
going
in
to say,
there?
the only thing I would say though is that I would be careful about keeping it on an exchange. Okay,
Okay,
you saw what happened
that's
with FTX, right? And
yeah,
so
true.
again, educate yourself about how to set up a hardware wallet so that you can buy it on an exchange and then send
Yep.
it to a hardware wallet so that you fully control it.
Hmm.
Because look, do I think anything's going to happen to Kraken or Coinbase? I don't know, but I didn't think anything was going to happen to FTX either, right?
True.
And
Yep.
Mount Gox before that. And so, the best, the one place you have full control is what you control, and you're going to trust yourself. You shouldn't trust in this because at the end of the day, then you're in the same position you are in a bank. If I have it at Wells Fargo or I have it at Coinbase, there's
Yeah.
now a third party I have to trust to allow me to get access. Oh, you can't take out that much, or oh, you have to wait 2 weeks, or whatever they might decide they want to do. I'm at their mercy. But if it's in my hardware wallet, they have no say. Only I do.
You might know this answer. It's a great point. Owning the actual asset on a cold wallet, right, or
Yeah.
cold storage. Um, what about loaning against your Bitcoin? Have you loaned against your Bitcoin before? Because a lot of experts that I've been following say you never want to sell it. You actually just want to take a loan against it. What's your thoughts?
So I haven't, but I've explored it extensively. When I went to Bitcoin 2025 this past year, and I'll go to
Yeah.
2026 next year. There were a whole bunch of companies that are starting to do this. Here's the challenge: um, in order to loan against your any crypto, but let's just use Bitcoin, you have to then take that Bitcoin and put it on their platform.
Got
So
it.
now there's a third party you have to trust again. So it's the trade off between, hey, do I want to earn interest on it, or do I want to make sure that I can't get screwed? And the rub and the reason I've chosen not to do it is, in order for me to make enough interest to make it worthwhile, I have to put a lot. I have to risk a lot, right? And again, it's like I'm not going to take a 7-figure risk so I can make 13%. You know.
Yeah. 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 Good point. Yeah, that is. if there was a platform that you would trust to put it on just at this very moment, is there one that comes to mind that you have explored and done due
It's not
diligence
it's
on?
not that I don't trust anyone. It's
Yeah,
not that I distrust
fair,
them.
fair.
It's that I don't know enough, right? And at
Yeah,
the end
yeah,
of the day, you don't have transparency. You don't know what their financial situation is, how much capital they raise, what their balance sheet
yeah,
looks like, what they're doing with it in order to earn that interest, right? And like I said, I went down that rabbit hole when I was at Bitcoin 2025 to see if I could convince myself that there was
yeah.
a way to do it that had low enough risk that I was willing to take the chance, and I couldn't. I couldn't convince myself.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I want to just piggyback on your AI comments too. Like, I look at AI as it's not going to replace us, it's going to enhance us. It's going to ultimately act as the calendar or as the calculator, excuse me, in a far greater capacity. But like we used to do math by hand, now we use a calculator, right? So it's using the tool that is most efficient and effective at any given moment, and that there's going to be subsets of AI tools. To that point, I'm curious. Have you ever heard of Ryan Levesque by chance? A buddy of
No,
mine.
I have
I
not.
should introduce you to him. He was on the podcast, but he just put out a very interesting piece. He has, a couple 100,000 on his email list, and I subscribe to his newsletter every Sunday. Puts it out, a lot of due diligence, and he said there's a huge AI bubble happening right now. Like 99% of AI companies are failing. Even like whatever.
It's just like the
Uh,
.com. It's just
yeah,
like the .com stuff. It'll be the same.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and same with
yeah.
same with all the cryptos. Same thing
Oh,
happens every time.
same.
Everyone,
Yeah,
NFTs. There's a
yeah.
million of them, and there's three that do well.
Right. Exactly. So the point is like, or his point at least would be, use the tools that are there to serve you, but be wary of investing in, AI companies per se, because many of them are going to go to zero and or get consolidated by the behemoths that are going to win the AI race, right? Um, and for me personally, like you mentioned something very interesting, which is using AI to just self-diagnose based on everything that you feed it. That's been a really profound strategy for me personally, because we are putting a lot of things out publicly, myself and you included, and many probably out there listening. So you have a lot to train the AI to give you insight. And I like to prompt somewhere around something around act as a professional life coach or business consultant, leveraging these strategies and knowing everything you know about me. What would you have me do or recommend is the best plan of attack for X outcome, right? Something around that prompt. That's been really interesting to see what gets spit out. So cool, super cool stuff here, David. I want to respect your time. I know we could
But
riff for a
just a
while.
couple points of clarification, if you don't mind, right?
Please, yeah.
So I do think that AI is going to replace a lot of people. The people it won't replace are the people that embrace it. In the same way that if you're in the horse-drawn carriage business and the car, when cars are coming up, thinking these cars are a fad,
Yeah, yeah,
that might not work out so well for you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and the other thing I would say too is it's a little when I took this seminar, one of the things that I realized was no matter how good I think my super prompt is, um, what I do is I come up with whatever I think the best prompt I could possibly give it is, and then I give it to AI and say, make this better. And
Yeah,
here are the
yeah,
goals of what I'm trying to do. And then I
yeah.
use its AI enhanced super prompt. And man, does
Ah,
that make a difference.
that's a pro tip. Yeah, I forget that last part of my little spiel there. It is going to replace the people who don't use it, because I totally agree. Like it's going to
Yeah.
replace people who don't adopt it. And unfortunately, you know, it's the facts. If I had my choice, man, I'd throw my phone in the river and go live in the woods with my family. But I also want to have a net positive impact on this planet and play a bigger game. So, you gotta partake, right? So that's the trade-off. But we covered a lot of ground here, from scaling businesses to AI to crypto and everything in between, sales even. I do want to respect your time, as I mentioned. I know you got a lot going on. Talk to us just real quick about the next thing that David's most excited about. The thing that right now, you really, let's say, that's got you jazzed up, for lack of a better term. I don't know. I've never used jazzed up before, but
Sure.
there we go.
Um, So I did a podcast at a wellness conference back last April called CryoCon, and I met this guy, Dr. Richard Hanley. I had him on the podcast. Him and I did a podcast swap ultimately, and he had this idea for a business called Titan Arc, and it was for a if you're familiar with LifeSpring or some of the other,
Hmm.
Fountain Life or some of the other, sort of wellness longevity businesses. Peter Attia was just on 60 Minutes. I know you're pretty big in the biohacking space, Ben Greenfield and all those folks that are in your orbit. Um, the reality is that, and I was just working with a functional medicine doctor myself. I've had my blood work done 4 times. I've done a microplastics test. I've done two gut biome tests. You name it. But being able to take that and make something really actionable from it, and because people think about their health, because we've been programmed that we do an annual physical, right? That's a snapshot. That's not how your health is. Health is not a snapshot. It's a movie, right?
Mm.
And so what we're trying to do with Titan Arc. So I was originally just really helping consult to Rich and help get his business off the ground and raise some capital, put the business plan together, and all that. And and then I realized, like, Rich is like, "Hey, would you help me come run this?" And I'm like, at first I was like, I said I would never do that again. And then I'm like, but I love this business, and I want it for myself. I want it for myself. And there are so many cool things to be done. And the reality is, even you probably know this, even 3 to 5 years ago, you could not have cost effectively done this because the testing was too expensive. But the pricing of testing has continued to come down. It's gotten more competitive. The quality has gone up. Understanding how your genetics and your epigenetics and even how your protein metabolism and all those things factor into things that are the reality is they think we're 10 to 15 years away from being able to reverse aging, not just at the organ level, but at the systemic level. And
Wow.
so, people that, are in my age category, 60 years, at 75, most people's health falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you have not done the things necessary, and even then, like, it really is going to hammer away at your ability to enjoy that last decade.
Yeah.
And so the Titan Arc stuff is the thing I'm the most excited about, just because, like I said, I need it for myself. I want to be around for my daughter and my wife,
Yeah.
who's a bit younger than me, for as long as possible. And I also want to enjoy, like I always said, my wife and my kid, they're never taking care of me. So
Yeah.
as soon as I'm starting to fall apart, I'm gonna take myself out. I don't want anyone taking care of me but me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm
That's
probably the most jazzed about.
Heck yeah, man. That's awesome. I mean, you got, your hands in a lot of different pots, and you're putting out regular content, with your podcast, speaking. You got all this stuff online. Where is the best place to send people? Where can people go to learn more about David?
Yeah, so if you just go to official David Guttman, my YouTube channel, that's probably the best place. I've got my link tree there with all my socials and stuff like that. I'm on every social media channel. I'm probably most engaged on X and on Instagram. But YouTube's where all my podcasts are. A lot of my short form content's there too. And yeah, I'm just trying to add value. And ultimately, I think people that are not investing in their personal brand are not thinking things through. I have very few regrets in life, but man, I wish I'd started this 5 years ago,
Mm,
because the reality is, people don't trust institutions anymore. They trust people.
yeah.
And they only trust people that demonstrate their trustworthiness over a long period of time. And that process, is not quick.
Facts, man. Yeah. Yeah. DavidGuttmanMedia.com as well is a good spot. Right. Your
At
website has,
gutmanmedia.com,
yeah.
gutmanmedia.com, or at official David Gutman
Oh,
on
Gutman Media.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll link all that up in the show notes. By the way, do you have that PDF you sent me, that write up? Can we post that as a link too for the people, or is that not
So
live yet?
you totally can. I'm about to put it on. I'm going to add it on my LinkedIn page,
Okay. Yeah. We'll
as an
leave it then.
article.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Okay.
they can find it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's worth the read. It really is. Um, I
Appreciate
like
that.
to just put everyone through a rapid fire round before I wrap this interview up. So this is just kind of fun questions, and basically you answer first thing that comes to mind, and we see what comes out of that
All
that
right,
genius brain of yours. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite food? Go.
Giordano's stuffed spinach pizza in
Oh, that's
Chicago.
good. Giordano's. Yeah. Um, favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Mm. Favorite book?
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
Mm. Best business advice?
Ignore sunk costs.
Mm. What's your spirit animal?
I don't, Panda Bear? I don't know.
I didn't anticipate Panda Bear coming out of there, but hey, you know what? I can see it now. Um, if you had uh, a health hack, something uniquely David that you do, what would that be?
I honestly, like, again, I have very few regrets in my life, but one of them is I didn't sleep enough earlier in my
Mm,
life. It's like people don't understand. The most important thing you can do is get a decent night's sleep, get enough deep
yeah,
sleep, get enough REM sleep. Don't like, stress yourself out over it. But man, like, pay attention to it and make sure you're getting enough sleep.
yeah, so true. Hard with babies and toddlers now, I will say,
It
but
sure is.
I got a little girl on the way doing it in February. I'm like, oh, here we go, the old sleep deprivation coming in
Yeah.
hot. But anyway, um, happy hustle hack for your money. Again, something maybe uniquely David that you do to spend, save, or invest wisely.
I already talked about a crypto. I mean, the other thing I'll say is I'm launching a hedge fund. We're helping a friend launch a hedge fund at the end of this year, where we're going to get some great returns. I think if you can find a way to get yourself into a hedge fund, you can get some really disproportionate returns.
Hmm.
But I would say crypto, in addition to that.
Yeah, right on. Happy hustle hack for your spirituality. Again, something maybe uniquely David that you do to connect to a higher power.
This is it's a journey that I'm on for sure. You and I talked about this a little bit when we
Yeah.
first connected. I think that uh, people can get too tied up in knots about which god or which church or which whatever it might be. At the end of the day, um, you have to be really honest with yourself about how you're traveling through life. And my the thing that is my guidepost is the golden rule. I just treat everyone how I want to be treated. and
Mm,
and and, and, the, and the reality is I'm not perfect, right? But the one thing is, make sure you have people around you that will be honest with you when you slip up, and
yeah.
that you really make it, because everything's like a muscle, right? You have to work it.
Mm,
um, when be really good at that self-reflection. and it's not that you don't want to give yourself grace, but when you make mistakes, make it right. And otherwise it's too easy, especially as you become more successful, to surround yourself with people that tell you how great you are, and that only ends badly.
yeah. Yeah. The golden rule. Well said. Three things you're most grateful for today.
My health, my daughter, my wife.
Mm. And if you had a billboard for the world to see with your last piece of content on there, what's that billboard read, David?
Oof. Um, don't leave anything unasked or unsaid.
Mm. Crush that rapid fire round, David. And man, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you, brother, for sharing your love, your light, your wisdom, your scaling secrets, will you? Your crypto knowledge and AI insights. I mean, this was a powerful episode for any entrepreneur, happy hustler out there looking to really just, crush it and become a better version of themselves. So I just appreciate your candidness too, how, you just keep it real, man. So thank you again for spending some time today and yeah, looking forward to future collabs and hanging in person soon.
I know, Carrie. I really appreciate you having me on. Great questions, and yeah, we covered a lot of territory. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Awesome, man. One more time, mention where's the best place for people to connect with you, follow you online?
GutmanMedia.com, or at official David Gutman on YouTube.
Love it. And tie a bow on just everything, we've talked about today. If you can, give a call to action, a rallying cry, will you, for the happy hustlers out there?
We're coming up here in the end of the year, and I think New Year's resolutions are horse shit. They usually last, go to a gym, 2, 3 weeks into the year, and you'll see there's no one left.
Yeah.
Um, but at the end of the day, I think making it a practice to, really look inside yourself. And because I had a mentor that once said, at some level, the truth is always known. Be honest with yourself about what you could be doing better. It's not that you want to grind yourself to death. I think people can overstate the grind a little bit.
Mm,
Find things that don't feel like a grind, but be honest with yourself. Have that sort of internal integrity, and that it's not just the level that you'll reach will be better, but how much you're going to enjoy that journey. God, it's so much better. And so I guess that's my closing piece of advice.
Yeah, well said. And final question I ask all my guests, David, is what does happy hustling mean to you?
It's kind of like what we've been talking about, right? Which is like hustle for what to what end, right? It's like if you can enjoy the journey, then what's it all for? And it's the
Mm,
same thing. Like, most of the people, it's why I found a conversation with you when we first, interacted refreshing. It's like, it's hard to find people that, spiritually have their shit together, that are decent, that have good relationships with their friends and family, and that take care of themselves physically. Like, forget about the success. Like, I know a lot of people, in fact, most of the people that I know that are financially successful are train wrecks physically and in most of their
yeah,
personal relationships.
yeah.
And, I'm kind of like myself, like, that's like you won the booby prize, Like, it's like if you don't have your health, ask Steve Jobs, you don't have your health, none of it matters, right? You don't have good
Mm,
relationships, none of it matters.
mm,
So, like, focus on, you got to be a holistic person. You got
mm.
to solve all of those problems, and you got to be happy while you're hustling.
Damn, mic drop, y'all. David Guttman, thank you again, brother. Thank you all for watching and listening. We are out. Peace and love, everybody.